couple of videos ago, I did my Q&A session and I really enjoyed doing that. And it also got me thinking about back to when I was growing up, and it gave me an idea for this video. Hello, and welcome back to the Adrian Project. I'm Adrian with a face for radio, and on today's special episode, I'm going to be doing 10 blasts from my past. So, cue the music. When I was growing up as a lad, same as every other kid, Christmas time was the be-all and end-all of the year. And of course, what you got for Christmas was more important than anything else. So, with that in mind, I was thinking back to 10 of my favourite Christmas presents that I ever received when I was a young lad growing up. Now, with that in mind, this is, of course, it's all going to be toys. And since I don't want YouTube thinking that I'm doing this video for children, because I am not, I do not make videos for children, here is a totally gratuitous photograph of Pamela Anderson being very saucy. And thank you, Miss Anderson. Right, without further ado, let's go back to the farthest reaches of my mind, and here's the first Christmas present that I can honestly say I remember getting. That is Dizzy Bug. In Dizzy Bug, you took it in turns to rev up the little bug, and you placed it onto the board, hoping that it would end up in the right coloured hole so you could move your peg up on the scoreboard. The winner of the game was the one who got to the top of the scoreboard first. I can remember that advert now as though it was on yesterday. I remember the tune. I think it went along to the, is it Ayakaracha or something, because it was Dizzy Bug Spin, Dizzy Bug Spin. So that one, yeah, really loved that game when I was very, very little growing up. So I think I must have been 5, 6 years old. I think at the same year, we also got my next game that I'm going to be talking about here now, and that was Hands Down. Hands Down was an updated version of the card game Snap. You all took it in turns to place a card, and if there was 2 corresponding cards that were the same, you'd all rush to put your little hand down on the little game board. Whoever got their hand down first won the pile of cards, and that went on until there was one person holding all the cards. That was another game that me and my friends used to play for hours on end. So simple, so easy, but it was just so much fun. That's what it was like back in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. Give that game to kids now, they'd probably look at you going out and won't know what to do with it. Right, that leads us on to the next game that I got. I can remember seeing this present there on the chair waiting for me. I had any idea what it was. Massive box, and when I opened it, it was Crossfire. Crossfire was a kind of hockey game where you used to shoot ball bearings at a puck on the board until you got it through the goals. of your opposition. Now, this game usually ended up with massive amount of blisters on your finger, so you used to have to put a plaster around the trigger on your gun to try and ease that, but it didn't really help all that much. Yeah, if that game came out today, the loony left would be up in arms about it. They'd be saying be promoting gun use or something absolutely ludicrous, and they'd be saying that the kids will be shooting each other in the head with ball bearings. Well, we never did that, did we? No, we didn't, did we? What I do remember, like I said in the previous section from this game, is having a big blister on your trigger finger. You tried your best to alleviate that. You put a fabric backing sticking plaster around your trigger. It did help, but sooner or later, because of the friction from your trigger, you'd end up with a blister on your finger. But it was great fun. Absolutely loved that game. Okay, so moving on to the next one, and it was Sabutio. Sabutio was a game made famous in the Undertones song My Perfect Cousin because he flicked a kick and I didn't know. Yeah, it's that soccer game where you got all your little figures on these stands and you used to flick them and flick the ball, and it was just like playing a full game of football but on the carpet in your living room. Yes, Sabutio, the football game or soccer game if you're in America. Yeah, this one was always one of those toys that always looked a hell of a lot better on the advert than it did when you were playing it, but I still loved it. If you played the game properly by flicking to kick and not pushing little players around to kick the ball, then it was great. I know me and my mates used to have football leagues. We used to have his own little league going, and we'd have take it round to each other's houses and play that way. I think we used to play full 45 minutes each half. That's how much into it we were. But no, it was absolutely fantastic game. Great memories. Another game that today you hear the kids and they just turn their nose up at it. But there you go. That's kids of today. Okay, next game up is a game that you've probably not heard of, but I loved playing. Dealer's Choice. Now, I was the only kid I knew that had this game. Dealer's Choice was a game where you, the car dealer, and the opposition wanted to buy a car. And basically, that was it. It was just trying to turn you into some kind of Del Boy figure. But basically, it was a game based around being a car salesman. Well, like I said, I was the only kid I knew that had this game. I don't know if you had it. I absolutely loved playing it. Most of my friends weren't into it all that much. I think mainly because it was a little difficult to follow the rules sometimes. It was a cross between being a car dealer and Monopoly. It was all to do with buying and selling and money and everything. And I think it was probably aimed at a more older kids than what it was. I think I was 8, 9, 10, something like that when I got it. But I really loved playing it. I say most of my friends weren't fans of it, but I was. But there we go. I used to have the odd game with it. Unfortunately, I'd like to have played with it more. But there you go. You couldn't play with it on your own. You could have played with it on your own, but it was not much fun there. Okay, next up on our list was the biggest hit of the 70s that many people don't talk about, and that was Top Trumps. Back in the 70s, Top Trumps ruled the playground. Every kid had at least one set of Top Trumps. Basically, what it is, you'd all have a card, whether it was cars, airplanes, battleships, whatever. And on your card, there was a lot of details about a certain car or battleship. You read out one of the items on there, and if you got a higher value for the corresponding item against the opposition, then you won that hand. That carried on until one player finished up with all the cards. Now, back in the 70s, Top Trumps was the Pokemon of its age. You know, people went mad for playing with the Pokemon cards and everything. Well, when I was growing up in the 70s, I think it's about around 74, 75, Top Trumps ruled the playground. Every kid had a set of Top Trumps, and come playtime, that's all you'd see, huddles of kids playing at Top Trumps. Did get a bit heated sometimes, of course. You always had that one card in your set that seemed to be overpowering on all the others. If you got that card in your set, you more or less knew that you'd won. It did have probably one value on there that some of the cards could beat it on, but for the most part, if you got that one card, you knew more or less in yourself that you were going to win. I think you still buy them now. I think they're about £5-6 a set. I don't know whether they are the same as what they used to be, but like I say, Top Trumps ruled the playground. Absolutely loved them. I used to have a good 7 or 8 sets of all different ones, and that's what we collected back then. Okay, that moves us on to the next toy that I had for Christmas that I absolutely loved, and I was the envy of my mates this year because I was the only one that had it. I was a special little boy, wasn't I there? And that was computer battleships. Microchip technology had finally arrived with computer battleships. Gone were the days where you had to draw a grid out on paper, and this even improved on the old game where you already had the board and the pegs and everything. Computer battleships had lights, it had sounds, it had action. It was absolutely fantastic and totally updated the game of playing battleships. Yeah, microchip technology had arrived. This was a few years before your Sega Mega Drives and all this were even thought of. I think at the time this came out, we'd got that television game, used to call it Pong. It was like a tennis game that used to go up and down. So this game was absolute leaps and bounds. You had to put into the memory all the positions of your pieces, and then when you came to playing the game, of course, you put in your coordinates and you got a fire button. You used to fire the button and it used to sound like a shell whistling over your head. If it missed, you didn't get anything. It just carried on with the sonar peeps. But if it hit, you got a nice explosion and the little display in front of you all lit up. It was all LEDs then. It wasn't no liquid crystal display or anything. It were all LEDs. And the person who won when they sank all the opposition's ships used to get this siren going off to let you know you won. Absolutely brilliant, loved it. So like I say, I was the envy of my friends because I got it and they didn't. We used to play it till the batteries ran out, and then you have to go and buy some more, and then you do it all over again. Absolutely loved that game. Of course, the more you played it, the more it got worn, and you know it started to get to the point where you couldn't put the things in right and whatever. But you got a good couple of years play out of it before it decided it didn't want to know anymore. But that was absolutely fantastic. Absolutely loved that. Okay, so moving on, it was the Airfix Soldiers. Now, it's no secret that I made Airfix models as a kid, and I still do today. But when I was growing up, the little plastic soldiers were also a mainstay in my toy box. Me and my friends used to spend hours setting them up and flicking marbles at them in pretend battles. Some of them even went on to paint them and used to collect the little tanks and other buildings that went along with them. Yeah, me and a couple of mates spent many an hour setting all these little soldiers up and flicking marbles at them. I think it was a precursor to the tabletop wargaming thing that I've just started getting interested in again with all the Warhammer. But back in the 70s, it was the little Airfix plastic soldiers. Sometimes I used to paint them up, sometimes I didn't. Or I used to go along with the, you used to be able to get little tanks, the model tanks, Airfix tanks that you made up. But on the 1/32 scale ones, they did come with these preformed tanks and models as well, and some scenery and whatever. Used to spend hours and hours and hours playing with those. I used to have, I think I had most of the sets. I don't think there was many sets that I didn't have. So where my pocket money went on, and like I say, used to play absolute hours and hours on that. Okay, so moving up to the next one, and it's big boys' toys now. It was my Hornby train set. The Hornby train set. I think every kid ever has wanted a train set at one time or another, and I had one. It was on a big 6 foot by 4 foot board. It used to have two circuits plus a good yard and a couple of sidings as well. Yeah, and they're still going strong today, Hornby, with electric trains, although it's all changed since I used to have my setup. I've had a look online at people's layouts, and it's all microchips and this, that, and the other, and the controllers. It's like baffling to me. But back then, in the late 70s, like I said, I had a big layout. Absolutely loved it. That's something else I used to spend hours on. And yes, I did end up being a train spotter. Yeah, I had a little book with the numbers in, because where I lived, we had a railway line quite literally 50 yards just down from where I lived, so we've got trains going up and down regularly. Before we all start having a go and sneering and having a go at train spotters, well, just think about when you sit there watching Top Gear and they're going on about the new cars and this car and that car. Well, that's car spotting, isn't it? There's no difference. So just think before you have a go at train spotters. But like I say, I used to spend hours on my layout. Absolutely loved it. And that was right until I got into playing guitar, and it's sort of like, right, I need money for that, so that went and guitars came in. But that leads us up to my most favourite game ever, and it's not electronic, it's not plugged in, it's not big and complicated. It's a little board game that I got. I think it was the same Christmas that I got Computer Battleships with, but I absolutely love this game, and that is Ghost Castle. My favourite game of all time, Ghost Castle. You used to start off with a little figure, and you had to worm your way through the rooms until you could get to the top of the stairs. However, there are always little traps waiting for you to knock you back and take you back to the beginning. I absolutely loved Ghost Castle. I used to hound people to play that game with me. I just absolutely could not get enough of it. So simple, nice easy game to set up, nice easy rules to follow. I absolutely loved it. And if anybody from whoever makes games now, I don't know if it's still Milton Bradley or whoever, I've got no idea, not having any kids that age now, but I'd love somebody to re-release Ghost Castle as it was. Don't mess with it. It was perfect as it was. Don't mess with it. Just re-release it as it was, even down to the box art, if you could do that. Because I know with copyrights and everything nowadays, that's probably, you'd have to put a different box on it or something. But the content, leave the contents alone. Just reproduce them how they were when the game first came out. Absolutely loved this game. I just couldn't get enough of it. And say I have seen it on eBay. People have got copies of it and they say it's a full set, but I've looked and it's really been knocked about a bit. I've never seen one that's been in pristine condition, but if it was in pristine condition, they'd be wanting absolutely ridiculous amounts of money for it. So now, if there's any game manufacturers out there who want to go a bit retro, please re-release my most favourite board game ever, Ghost Castle. So there we are, 10 blasts from my childhood past. We're really interested to know if any of you out there watching, did you have those games for Christmas? Did you play them? Did your friends have them and you played them through there? Or did you always want them and you never got them? So there we go. I'd just like to say many thanks to Pamela Anderson for helping me out, not getting my video struck off. And I'd like to thank you all again for watching too. If you enjoyed what you saw today and you'd like to do so, would you please subscribe to my channel? It's all very much appreciated. And of course, don't forget that you can also join me on Facebook and Twitter. And with all that in mind, I'd like to thank you all again. Many thanks again for watching, making my channel what it is. And here's to seeing you all again for the next episode of the Adrian Battle Project.